Hey movers, shakers, and the stuck but curious. I'm Freya Gordon, and this is Good Shift, the podcast that helps you figure out what's next in your career and make a move with confidence. Today, we have a really interesting and different perspective on making a bold career change. How do you react when your life partner wants to risk your financial security to chase a dream? And then, what happens when you realise you want to do the same thing? My guest today, Pam Venu, knows both sides of this story. When her husband Jason wanted to leave his stable job to start an insurance brokerage, she thought he was completely nuts. But then, COVID hit. Suddenly Pam was juggling a full-time corporate role that she'd held for over 15 years, supporting Jason's growing business, Coversure, and raising 2 young boys during lockdowns. She loved her job, but the chaos made her reassess what was really important to her. 4 years ago, Pam made the leap herself, leaving her corporate job to join Jason full-time in their insurance brokerage business. Today, they're loving working together at Coversure and have seen some amazing success. But getting here meant navigating a completely new industry, working through how you can feel like your work is tied to your identity, dealing with financial risk, and what it really takes to build something together as a couple. And we're going to dive into all these things today, as well as a special sidestep into insurance where I'm going to ask a lot of questions that may answer a lot of questions that you're having yourself. If you've ever been the cautious one watching your partner take risks, or watched your partner take a risk and then decided you want to do the same, this will be a very insightful conversation for you. Pam, welcome to Good Shift.
Thank you, Freya. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on today. And as I said in the intro, I'm really excited to delve into what the other side looks like of watching and supporting your partner through that, and then you making that leap yourself. So take me back to when Jason said that he first wanted to leave his job and start the business, and what was your immediate reaction there?
It was fear. So that was my immediate reaction. Naturally, as a person, I'm quite risk adverse. So I tend to think, oh my God, what if we do this? And what's going to happen with this? And I'm like, what's the consequence of doing this? And a few months prior to him ringing me and saying, I'm going to quit my job, he actually collapsed in our kitchen from workplace stress. And
wow.
Yeah, it was quite scary. Changes were made in his working environment, which was okay. But he walked into his job one morning, he's just like, I just can't be here anymore. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm done.
What type of job did he have?
He was an insurance broker. It was very much a very high stress role. It was more around fire and general house car content stuff. So yeah, he rang me and he said, oh, babe, can I talk to you? And he said, I'm going to quit my job. And he's just like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm here and I just can't. I just can't be here. I took a breath. I took a moment. I'm like, okay, ring your dad. Because if anyone with being sane about life decisions will be my father-in-law. He's probably the most sensible person I've ever come across. So he rang his dad and he said to my father-in-law, he said, oh, Dad, I'm going to quit my job. And he said, oh, is it going to make you happy? And he said, yeah, Dad, I think I will. He said, oh, well do it then. Well, to be fair, I wasn't really banking on that answer. So he rang me back and Dad said it was okay and he's going to help us with the mortgage. Because bearing in mind, we just bought a house like 3 or 4 months before. So anyone who has bought a house before knows the first year in your house is such a learning curve because you've got rates and insurance and all this stuff.
All the stuff you don't think about before you buy a house.
So I freaked out. I said to my boss at the time, I said, look, I think my husband's having a mental breakdown.
When he told you this, and you had these fears arising, what happened next in terms of next steps once he'd quit?
So basically he started from the ground up and he wanted to go out 100% on his own. He started everything from the ground up. So he had no client base he could start off with. He had no one he could go talk to. He just went out and just hustled. Like literally hustled. So he didn't exactly have, like I said before, have like a client base where he could go to because obviously restraint of trade with his previous employer, going to networking groups, going out and meeting people, starting off with your friends and family and having conversations with them at the start. That's where he started from, and then it just kind of built up from there.
And what did things look like for you at this time? Because I'm guessing this means that you're the sole breadwinner. There must have been quite a bit of pressure on you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny because he quit his job and then he started working on his own. And then I found out I was pregnant with our second child. I'm just like, it's not exactly great timing, but God has a plan. And I was earning a good income. I was working for a big corporate. So, we could get by with mum and dad's help now and again when we're a bit short on the mortgage and stuff like that. So they could help us out. So it was a lot of pressure on myself. Yep.
And What did you do to support Jason throughout that period? Because there would have been a lot of fear and uncertainty for him as well, not having a base for anything, and then the same for you. So how did you two navigate that?
I think we really supported each other. We would sit down and actually talk about those fears. Like, hey, this is what I'm worried about. And we'd work through it together. Like, okay, so we're worried about how we're going to pay the mortgage next week. Let's figure out how we could do that. What can I do? Like, for example, it could be getting some business across the line for him, talking to an underwriter. I'm like, if you can help me do this, I can go out and do that 3 more times. So it's actually learning to work with each other.
And for anyone listening whose partner is wanting to make a big career change, what is some advice you would give to them about having these difficult conversations or giving them the support that they might need?
I think you need to sit down and have the conversation. Don't make that decision on your own. So if you're the partner who's wanting to make this big career change, you need to sit down and talk to your significant other and tell them this is what you want to do. And don't just say, I just want to do this because I want to. You need to have a reason why. You can't just do it. If it's your dream, that's your reason why. This is I want to do it because I love this. And sitting down and have that conversation. Don't just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, especially when you've got a mortgage and kids and things.
Yeah, exactly.
It changes a lot in terms of how you can make those decisions, doesn't it?
Definitely. Because you've got so many factors to think about, right? It's not just about you two. If we didn't have kids, we're like, well, it'll be all right. We'll just go back and live at home with mum and dad for 6 months while we sort everything out. But yeah, we obviously didn't have that opportunity to be able to do that. So we had so many contributing factors to think about.
And I liked what you said about the reason being it's your dream is a good reason. And that's great validation, I think, around someone who's wanting to make a change and wondering whether it being a dream is a good enough reason to do that and sit down and have that conversation with their partner. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think, if, like, for example, Jason, he loves insurance and he loves being able to help people. So he always knew he was going to stay in that industry, but he just knew he didn't want to work for anybody anymore. He wanted to be his own boss. I'm like, okay, cool. So let's see how we can make that work. And we call Covershore our third baby. We built that into what it is today. Yeah.
And now I want to dive a little bit more into your career story and your career change. So can you walk us through your journey and the career that you had before you moved into Covershore and how you ended up making that change?
Yeah, of course. So I didn't finish high school. School wasn't for me. So when I left school, I did admin for a real estate company for a while. So I did all the contracts for sales and purchase agreements, that sort of stuff. And then had enough of that, and I started working basically for New Zealand Post. So I ran the retail outlets back then. So I would step in and run a post shop when they weren't running so well, or if a manager was away on extended leave, I'd step in and run the show. And eventually I was pulled into head office to run quite a large number of projects. And then I was pulled into a risk and compliance role. And that's something I'm really passionate about. So I was able to help build a risk and compliance framework for our retail outlets back then. Yeah. So the skills that I was able to get off from like multiple different streams, from doing so many different things, even though I was with the one employer for one time.
Yeah. So you sort of had a lot of different jobs within that 15 years.
Yeah.
And how did you know that it was right to stay with New Zealand Post as that one employer throughout that time? Did you ever have hesitations or worries about that?
They were amazing. As an employer, they were fantastic. I was really lucky to have the most amazing bosses, and I'm still in contact with them now. I had no hesitation leaving. It was actually a really hard decision. It wasn't a hard decision to leave because I knew why I wanted to leave at that point. But it was still hard because of the people.
Yeah, so tell me about that point when you decided to leave New Zealand Post, and what was it like handing in your resignation after having been with them for so long? It must have felt like you were cutting a big tie.
Yeah, so obviously prior to that, I was working through COVID, being the main income earner, because the whole timelines of COVID and babies and Jace changing his career kind of all hit around about that same time. So I had our second son, Sam. He's now 5. So I'd had him, and I'd had 6 months off for maternity leave, and I went back and I played out the 6 months, and I thought, no, I'm going to give it 6 months and see if I can do this. Can I juggle everything? And it got to a point where I just couldn't juggle.
And that's because you're managing having 2 children, your job, and then supporting Jason as well.
Correct. Yeah, it was just too much. And Jace knew it was too much. He's just like, I think you need to resign. And I need you in the business at this point, because the business was getting so big, he couldn't run it on his own.
And how did it feel when he initially said to you, I think you need to resign?
I think I knew it. So it was more like, when someone tells you, like, you need to do something about X, you're like, well, actually, you're probably right. It was more like a reality check.
Did it feel like a relief or more like, okay, this is a good
It was a relief because I think he was confirming what I had already known.
Yeah.
It was scary because for me, we still had that residual income coming in, right? So we didn't have to worry about money,
Yeah.
right? So it was scary, but it was something I knew that I needed to do because I wanted to be a better parent. I didn't want to be stressed out and, yelling at, coming home exhausted and things like that, because I still had to obviously be a mum, which is my first number one job, and my second and my full-time job, and do the stuff that needed to be done for the business. I couldn't do everything. Yeah.
And what point was the business at when you were having to make this decision? Was it earning money at this point, or was it still very early days?
It was probably breaking even. So, we'd still obviously take money out of the business to pay the mortgage and do things that we had to do, but it wasn't making a heck of a lot of money. But it needed me to be there in the business so then it could become more profitable, so Jace could do what he does and be amazing to bring in more business. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so you had to do a bit of future thinking there. This is going to be quite uncomfortable right now because you're losing the only secure income that you have coming around. But in order to get CoverSure to a place where it's going to start being more profitable, you needed to put your time and effort into that.
Correct. Yeah. We needed to make a conscious decision around the direction of the business and what we needed it to become more than what it was at that point.
And was that a really uncomfortable feeling at the time, or was it something you both just knew?
I think we both knew it was right. I remember when I rang my boss and he understood. I said, look, I think, I'm honestly struggling with having the 2 boys and the business and everything else. I just can't do it. He's just like, no, I respect it. I don't like it, but I respect it. Yeah.
And were you nervous to call him in the first place?
Oh my God, I was so scared. I started to cry. I was really scared.
How did you manage to pick up the phone and break through that fear?
I just had, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off, eh? You just got to do it. There's some, even in business today, there's conversations that I have to have that are really uncomfortable for people. And I'm just like, oh, right, you ain't got to do it. Yeah.
It's got to happen, so you may as well get on with it. So COVID was a catalyst for reassessing your priorities. How did you work through what were your key priorities then?
Key priorities for me were my boys and my husband. My boys are my world. So Aiden's 10, and Sam is 5. So they were my priority, and I think COVID, it really helped us assess what's important, because before that, we were running around and school drop off and business blah blah blah, and I think it really kind of made people stop and pause, and actually made them what is more important to you? My kids are everything to me. I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can for my children.
That's cool. So I'm sort of seeing a connection between what is your fulfillment in your working life, a big part of that being able to spend good time with your boys, but also being able to prepare for their future and be able to support them through that future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely want. It's funny because my 10-year-old, he said, I'm going to work with Dad. We're like, well, actually, we love that you want to do that, but we actually want to teach you to do something that you are passionate about. We don't want you to do this because Dad did it. We want you to do something because it's your dream and it's your passion. He said, I want to dig holes. I'm like, cool. Then let's teach you how to build a business to dig holes if that's what you want. But it's about encouraging them to follow their dreams and their passions. And that's one of the other things that we do with our team as well, the people that work for us. If there's a niche, or I don't like to refer to people as a market, but if there's a group or a demographic or something that you are passionate about, then let's help you.
Do you think you had that perspective before you made the change yourself about following your passions, or has that come more to the forefront of your mind since you've managed to go and do that yourself?
I think since I've become to do it myself, because prior to that, I was always stuck in the 9 to 5, and I was told to go out yourself and get yourself a good job and have a career and get married and have kids and all that, the things that people expect of you. But now it's just like, actually, I'm going to do something that I enjoy and I love.
And do you really enjoy the insurance?
I do. I love the fact you can make such a difference in someone's life. Being there from the start, essentially the start to the finish, is such a privilege to be
Can you
part
talk
of.
me through a little bit more about what exactly you do?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what
Insurance broker?
CoverSure exactly does and what an insurance broker really
Oh,
is.
cool. So CoverSure, we are a personal risk insurance broker. So we work with multiple different insurers. We only work with top tier providers, which means that when we put a policy in place for someone, we know that it's a good policy to put in place. So basically what we do is we look after life, trauma, income protection, medical insurance. So we insure the people. Yeah, we love it.
So if I was wanting to get insurance on my life, for example,
Yes.
I would come to you guys, let you know what my requirements were, and then you find me the right insurance agency.
Yeah,
and
essentially,
sort that
yeah.
out.
So you put us in between you and the insurer. So we negotiate and we get the best terms possible, and we're also there for you at claim time. And I think that's more important. You can go to a bank or you can go online and click a button and get an insurance product. But when you have a claim, I can't stress the importance of having a broker at that time to help you navigate that process, because it's not necessarily as easy as what people think it is.
Yeah, so what does that process look like if you need
Oh, like for example, if you died,
Yeah.
your family would be able to come to me and say, hey, Freya's passed away. She had a life insurance policy. Now what? I can help with all of that, and I do all of that for you.
Do people need a broker to deal with insurance, or is that an added benefit?
No, they don't, but I recommend that they do, because people think they need X amount of insurance because, well, actually, if we sit down and actually look at your whole financial picture, what your hopes, your dreams, your debts, your liabilities, everything, actually you might not need as much of that, but you need a little bit more of that.
So you guys are sort of guidance counselors on how to deal with insurance and
yes.
what the right things to do are.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we are, yeah.
Okay, that's so helpful to understand. For someone that's thinking about this, just for someone like me who's a bit of a rookie with insurance things and they're wanting extra help, how does it work in terms of, do you guys charge a fee for the service, or is it like ongoing added onto the insurance?
We personally don't charge a fee. So as a business, we've made that decision actually. If people want advice around insurance, we won't charge you, because it should be something you shouldn't feel pressured into. How our insurance broker works, they receive a commission direct from the insurer.
So it's like a travel agent where you don't actually pay the travel agent, but the airlines and things.
Exactly. So when you pay your insurance premium, if there's a claim, the insurer will pay it. I don't pay it. Otherwise, it'd be a bit of a problem. We will help you navigate that claims process, like an income protection claim, for example. That could be a very long, ongoing process. You could be off work 2 or 3 years, depending what happens to you, right? So having to negotiate with the insurer on a regular basis about returning back to work, all that sort of stuff, that's what your broker can help you do.
I see.
Yeah.
And I imagine all brokers are quite different and you all have your different unique selling points.
Of course.
So how do people know what to look for if they're looking for an insurance broker?
I think you shouldn't feel pressured. You shouldn't feel like you're being sold something. One thing that we are really passionate about is we're just educating people. At the end of the day, people aren't stupid. They can make their own informed decisions about what's important to them. We just lay it on the table.
And what are some things that you think are key to get insured that people might not think about?
Honestly, please insure yourself before you insure your phone. Like, it sounds really silly, but people put more focus on their stuff than themselves, because you got to change that mindset, right? It's just like, well, what happens if you get sick and you can't pay for your stuff anymore?
I feel like we sort of feel like we're invincible until we're not, so we don't think about ourselves as the things that need
100%.
insuring.
Oh,
So
definitely.
what parts of us would we be insuring? What are the common
Life is obviously a biggie, because the cost of dying here in New Zealand is astronomical.
And so that's to protect the people who would be covering up after you, really.
It can be even something really small. It starts off small, right? Things like income protection, being really smart, especially when you're younger. You got nothing that's happened to you. You've never been sick. You've never injured yourself. Most people haven't at this point in their lives. Being able to get income protection at a younger age before you hurt yourself or you get sick is so key, because you can get yourself better terms when you're younger, because they don't change. Especially if something happens to you later. It can be harder as you get older. Your premiums get you don't want to know what I pay for my insurance premiums. I wish I had smart financial advice when I was younger, being able to put something in place while I'm young. Yeah.
And that's somewhat similar to health insurance too. Once you've got all these different health issues, it just increases your premiums.
It increases your premiums. You get exclusions. They won't cover certain things, or they'll place a loading which makes your premiums higher. So especially if young people are watching this, make a smart move and get something in place. Something is better than nothing. Yeah.
And what about for people with small businesses who are starting up their businesses and they obviously have a lot invested into that?
Yeah.
What's some advice that you could give people around that in terms of insurance?
There's a couple of things. If it's just like a one-man band, quite small, definitely getting some income protection in place, because what you need to think about is One, like if something happens to you, like a tradie, for example, if he falls over and breaks his leg, he's a one-man band. ACC aren't exactly ideal. They're not great, and it's obviously not enough income to be able to sustain yourself and the business to keep going. And when you get bigger, there's things that we can discuss, like key person insurance. So you might have someone in your business that's so important. If something happens to them, like the business would not survive, you can actually insure that individual from an income perspective. So there's things that we can do in that space as well.
Yeah. It is so helpful to know. Before we get off the deeper side dive into the insurance, which has been super interesting, is there any advice that you would give to people that we haven't covered yet, especially people who are thinking about starting a business from an insurance perspective?
I think sitting down and having a conversation is probably just having that really good conversation at the start, because there's things that you need to think about.
And in terms of some key things when you're starting up a business, or that you witnessed when Jason was first getting started as well, is there any things that you think people may not think of that would be a really good resource for them to have?
Getting yourself a good accountant, because you can get that so wrong, especially in the first 2 years of being in business, because you've got your own tax and you've got provisional tax and you've got GST, and if you've got employees, you've got PAYE. It's really confusing, and I'm glad that we've got the one that we are with now, because I've been able to position ourselves not just for the now, but made us start to think about, where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years' time? What's your end game? What do you want? And how do we, as an accountancy firm, how do we help you to be able to get to that pathway?
And what would you say to people who are just starting out a business and potentially need some of this help, but they are worried about spending the money on an accountant?
That's a really interesting one, because I don't like spending money on anything. I'm really quite tight when it comes to that department, but I think it's a good investment. You got to think of it as an investment into your business, because they're going to help you plan and put money away in the right way, because the last thing you want is someone coming down on you like a ton of bricks for unpaid tax and things you haven't done right. That's the last thing you want. So think of it as an investment.
Spending money to save money.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. I think the first year that we got ourselves a really good accountant, we changed a few things around, and it saved us quite a lot of money in tax.
And is there anything else outside of the accountant that you have, in hindsight, wish that you'd got onto earlier, or that you found really valuable?
I've personally found really valuable, and I know Jace is actually having a mentor, someone you can go to and talk to. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone in your industry, but someone that you feel confident to talk to about your worries. What should I do here? Someone to bounce ideas off, that sort of stuff. Even getting into things like BNI, like a BNI group.
What's BNI?
So they're like a networking group, and they meet. There's multiple chapters around Auckland. That's a really good way of being able to network and connect with people. Yeah.
And how did you find a mentor or these groups in the first place?
So Jace, he did a lot of the BNI stuff because I had to stay home with the kids. But he really enjoyed it because it allowed him to be able to connect and basically meet new people. So that's a really good way to get your business started, to be able to talk to people, right? But from a mentor perspective, Jace, he and myself, we are really blessed to have a mentor in Naomi Ballantyne. She is just an incredible woman. She started Partners Life on her own. She's a woman in a man's world. So insurance is traditionally a very male-dominated industry, right? But she basically created Partners Life from the ground up and sold it. We've been very lucky to have her in our court. We've gone through ups and downs in our business. It's not been an easy ride. And she's been someone that we've been able to call and say, hey, what do we do? And how do we handle this situation? Because she's probably been through it.
Is that a paid mentorship?
And in regards to her personally, no. She's just become a very, very good friend of ours.
Yeah, and I think, just for anyone who doesn't understand mentorship too, there is obviously paid versions, but there are so many people out there who are willing and really excited to support people who are coming up through either their industry or just starting up from the ground up.
There's so many different avenues of you being able to connect with someone where you can get some advice.
Yeah, it just takes maybe jump on ChatGPT, jump on Google. To anyone who's already in your industry, may have the leads as to finding those groups and finding mentors.
Yeah, 100%.
And you were talking about there's obviously been a lot of ups and downs in your business.
Yeah.
Can you talk through how you've dealt with those peaks and troughs?
Yeah, I did struggle, to be honest. It was tough, but I think staying true to yourself and staying true to our vision around what we want for our business, when the disruption occurred, it made us really reassess around, what's important, what's our vision, what's our goal, what do we want? What sort of business do we want to create? It actually, when we have those peaks and troughs, the peaks are awesome, but peaks won't last forever. And that's what you've got to remind yourself all the time. There are going to be down times, but the down times actually allow you to reassess. Let's stop, let's pause for a minute, and let's reassess around where to next.
And have you wanted to throw the towel in at certain points?
Yeah. But then I take me back to my why. Why did I leave my job? I could have walked back in and they probably would have had me back. Well, I say that, but
it sounds like they loved you. I'm sure they
no,
would.
yeah, probably. But I could have done it and I could have chucked it in. But it's not just about me, and it's not just about Jason, our kids. We have staff who rely on us. We have clients who rely on us. We have suppliers who rely on us. So chucking in the towel is not the easiest. It's an easy way out. It's a cop out. Yeah.
And how do you manage to still look at the good sides when everything feels like it's falling down around you?
Oh, that's been tough. There's been times where I'll go home and have a good cry. I'll be in a bad mood at work, and that's just because I'm having a bad day. But I take it back. I just go home and just breathe and just reassess. Again, it's just taking it back to my why. Why are we here? Why do I chuck my job in? And and it takes me back to my family, being able to be there for my family, provide a future for them. Yeah.
Awesome. And tell us about some of the most epic moments that you've had, and some of those moments where you've been like, I have just absolutely made the right decision and I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, so happy. I think probably the first time that it reiterated why I made the decision to leave my job was my son was 5, and my baby, he was at daycare at that point, and I was able to, they had like a shared picnic lunch thing, and you could have a parent there, and he came up and sat next to me and goes, Mummy, I'm so happy you're here. This has made my day. I'm like, pull out my heartstrings, mate. But being able to being there for him, and even my other son, being able to be there at the important moments. I don't think there's been very many that I've had to miss. At the school assemblies when he got his first certificate and all that stuff, that always reminds me, it brings me back to my why.
So really that increased flexibility by being your own boss, is that what's allowed you to be able to go and attend all those things?
Definitely. There's been times where I have had to say to the boys, where Mummy can't come today, or I can't drop you off at school today because I've got to go do this, but I promise we'll do this instead.
What about the personal feeling that you get showing up to work every day to a business that you've built where you're able to enrich other people's lives?
Oh, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of what we've become. So when we started our business, we started in our front bedroom. We eventually moved out to the Jason's Man Cave, which is our garage. And on Monday, we literally moved into our own office as in our own space.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
Really
it was stressful moving, but it was fun. Like, man, we actually did this. And when I walk in and our team are there, and they're having fun and they're laughing and they're joking, they're happy. People just come in, even on their off days, just because they love being there. And I'm so proud of the culture that we've built and allowing people to look at financial services as a career. Because let's face it, no one grows up to say, I want to be an insurance broker when I grow up. No one does that. But we've put it in a way where it allows people to see this as a career opportunity, especially in the Māori and Pacifica communities, and females, because there's not enough female brokers. It's a hugely male-dominated industry, so we're allowing
getting more of that diversity into the insurance industry. Has that been something that's come from you personally?
It's come from both of us, from me and Jace. We always wanted to do things differently and put new life into the industry. But being able to have allowing people to come into the industry and to be themselves. We rock up to work in tees, jeans and Jordans, man. Like, we don't do suits and ties.
I love that you guys have found a really solid purpose in not just building your own business and being able to be your own bosses and being able to spend more time with your kids, which is obviously like a really important part of it, and to not have those sort of health stresses where you end up on the floor at night. But also you've been able to create a real purpose out of what you're building to help other people and make it a better place for everyone to be.
Definitely. And we love what we do. We love our team. It's pretty amazing.
Let's talk a little bit more about those early scrappy days, because I think a lot of people who listen to this are thinking about starting up a business, and I'd love to hear from you. You said that you started it in your house. How did you pull everything together, and what are some key pieces of advice that you would give to people?
I think surround yourself with really good people. From the start, we had, for example, our Jace's ex-COO, Chief Operations Officer from his previous employer. He'd retired, and Jace rang him up for a coffee one day. He just, let's just have coffee and catch up. And he's basically come on board to be like a mentor for us as well. He's navigated so many different landscapes. Again, I think probably the biggest piece of advice I can give is connecting with people who can give advice. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to act on that advice, but having someone as a sounding board. We like to call, his name's Steve, we like to call him as Jason's no man, because if anyone's going to say no, it'll be Steve, and Jason will probably listen. So yeah, having someone who's actually not afraid to say no and say that's probably not a good idea, and having someone that will actually give you advice and the reasons why.
And talk to me about working with your husband and how that all works.
Well, that's not for the faint-hearted. Nah. I think what makes us work is that we have totally different skill sets. So we're like polar opposites. So he's the big dreamer. He's the guy with all the big ideas. I'm not. I'm the realist. I'm the person who gets stuff done. Hence, I've got the title of Chief Operations Officer, because I'm an operationally based person. And I think that's because we have that two very, very different skill sets. That's why we work well together. There's been times where we've gone home and not talking to each other. And I think, but the one thing we have learned is to leave that stuff at the office. What happens at work is at work. We don't. It's very rare, unless we've had a really, really busy day where we haven't really seen or talked to each other much, we might have a bit of a conversation about work at home, but we try not to do that as much as we can.
And I feel like that's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you make sure you actually put boundaries in place to do that?
You just literally have to do that, set boundaries in place, knowing that, because you can easily pick up a laptop and continue working when you're at home if you want to. But, you need to reassess again, why are you doing what you're doing? You're doing it for more family time, right? So why are you sacrificing your family time to do work stuff?
I love that you keep coming back to that. Start with the why.
Yeah, 100% go back to your why. Like, why are you doing it? Yeah.
And what have been some of the really amazing moments of working together that would inspire people who are on the edge?
We talked about us moving into our own office. That was an amazing moment for us, because we could sit there, like, wow, we built this. That itself is an amazing moment when we can sit back and look everything that we've built. People have come and gone. We've had bad stuff happen, but we've been able to be there, and we can sit back and like, wow, we did this. That itself was pretty amazing.
And what are some of the things that you think are a lot of the positives for working with your partner?
Yeah. Again, having that flexibility and the understanding, like he'll know, for example, Pam's not going to be in today, the boys are sick, whereas I don't have to explain myself to an employer.
For any couples that are considering working together, what would you want them to know before they start that they should be equipped with to whether or not to make the decision to work together?
Yeah. I think while we own the business together, I know that Jace is the boss, and it's not because he's my husband and he's the boss. This is his baby, right? Well, it's our baby, but it's more his baby than my baby. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But understanding your boundaries. So I know I'm the boss up to a certain point, but anything above that, that's Jace.
Yeah.
And this is him. I'm just there to support him, and it's not because I'm the female. If if the role was reversed, if I said this was my idea and he came in, it would be the same, because I think that's where a lot of couples do fail, because there's too much of, they're too equal. You can't have two bosses. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice. And the same thing for people who are going into co-founding something with a friend or just a different business partner.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, if you do that, there is going to be equal footing. Someone may not have started the business first, so just working out who's going to make the decisions at which key points. And it doesn't have to necessarily be that someone is the final decision maker in everything, but it needs to be clear so that, when you get to a point where there's disagreement on something and you can't come to a final decision together, someone can make a decision to move forward.
Yeah, 100%. We've learned over like previous business dealings and things that we've had to have those really, really clear boundaries and have those really open and honest conversations as well. Yeah.
And so for you, when you were stepping into a completely new industry with insurance, how did you learn the things that you needed to learn?
I literally just absorbed information. I'm a bit of a geek. I read a lot. So when I did my level 5, so to be a financial advisor in New Zealand, you have to be level 5 qualified. So I did that not because I was going to be a financial advisor, but because everyone else on the team was. So I'm like, well, if you guys are doing it, I want to support you to do it, so I'll do it too. And I found out I really enjoyed it. And then over time, you just naturally absorb information. You learn off other people, and you've got all the training and assistance in the world and things like that to be able to help you.
And there's so many great resources out there these days. You don't have to pay for a big course to learn.
No, you don't. But a lot of it you learn naturally over time.
And what does success look like for you both now versus when you started?
So successful when we first started was, we never dreamed that our business was going to be where it is now. Jace didn't have any intention of building it to be the beast that we are. He only thought it was going to be himself.
How big is it?
So we have a team of around 50 people.
Oh, wow. Yep. You're really big.
Yep. So, we've exploded quite a lot, especially in the last 6 months. We never envisioned that we'd have an operation in the Philippines providing admin support. So our success back then, what we thought was going to be successful for us, is very different to what we define success as now, because our whole business model has changed and we've just morphed into something completely different to what we had originally planned.
And because you'd originally planned for it to be something, I imagine it's much smaller, and now it's really taken off, do you feel like you still are getting the same value and fulfillment out of having something bigger as opposed to smaller?
Yeah, I think that value and that fulfillment has just, the perception's changed. Yeah, because initially it was just we'll be able to provide and have a good income, and and then obviously now it's just like, actually we're building this into something amazing, and we want to do. We've got so many other little avenues of work that we're working on that's not just related to insurance. We're like, man, this is really cool. We can do some really cool stuff. Yeah.
And if you could attribute that success and the business expanding and taking off as it has now to a few key things, what would some of those be?
Establishing a really good culture has probably been key to success. So when we went through a big business disruption a couple of years ago, like I said, I was saying before, that it made us really reassess on what's important, what's our culture, what's our why. And even something as simple as a business, like having your vision statement. What's your vision? At that point, we had one, but have we looked at it in a certain amount of time? No, we didn't. But now we've got a vision and we know what that is, and now we're on that trajectory.
So back to the why again.
100%. We could go out and write a whole bunch of business and earn heaps of money, but is it really going to fulfill my soul? Am I actually doing the right thing by people? Am I doing the right thing by my conscience? Probably not. And I'm like, and then it doesn't really sit right with us. And surrounding yourself with really good people, whether it be a really good team, mentors, business support mechanisms like accountants, mentors, financial advisors, whatever that might be. Surrounding yourself with really good people is really key.
We'll go to a few quick fire close questions. What is one resource that has helped you on this journey that you'd like to recommend to the audience?
So Naomi Ballantyne, I've talked about her a couple of times while we've been chatting today. She has done a couple of podcasts, and I highly recommend you listen to her story. Awesome. If you want, especially if you're a female and you want to be inspired by someone who has been into an industry that was dominated by males, started something from the ground up, and has been able to be a success and not change her as a person, she's incredible.
And where can people connect with you and Coversure and find out some more about what services you guys offer?
Cool. So obviously I'm available on LinkedIn, so you just look up for me, Pamela Venu. You'll be able to find me. We also can have a chat to us, jump on our website, which is www.coversure.co.nz, or find us on Facebook or Instagram.
That was an awesome conversation, and we sidestepped a lot more down into the insurance part than
we did a little bit
going to, and I'm really happy we did that, because I think there's so much value in that, and I learned a lot, and I know everyone else will too.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been awesome to chat.
Awesome, thank you.